the president igniting another war of words with a member of the U.S. military. This time, retired Admiral William McRaven, the commander who oversaw the operation that killed Osama bin Laden. President Trump not only dismisses McRaven as a, quote, Hillary Clinton backer, but says it would have been nice if bin Laden had been taken out sooner. Here's the president talking to Fox News anchor Chris Wallace.
McRaven, retired admiral, Navy SEAL, 37 years, former head of U.S. Special Operations.
Hillary Clinton fan.
Special Operations.
Excuse me, Hillary Clinton fan.
Who led the operations, commanded the operations that took down Saddam Hussein and that killed Osama bin Laden, says that your sentiment is the greatest threat to democracy in his lifetime.
He's a Hillary Clinton backer and an Obama backer. And frankly,
he was a Navy SEAL.
Wouldn't it have been nice if we got Osama bin Laden a lot sooner than that?
McRaven has been an outspoken critic of Trump. He wrote a stunning rebuke in August, saying Trump had embarrassed and humiliated the U.S. And back in February of last year, he called Trump's attacks against the media, quote, the greatest threat to democracy. McRaven is now responding to the president's latest comments. He tells CNN, quote, I did not back Hillary Clinton or anyone else. I am a fan of President Obama and President George W. Bush, both of whom I worked for. I admire all presidents, regardless of their political party, who uphold the dignity of the office and who use that office to bring the nation together in challenging times. I stand by my comment that the president's attack on the media is the greatest threat to our democracy in my lifetime. When you undermine the people's right to a free press and freedom of speech and expression, then you threaten the Constitution and all for which it stands. CNN's Boris Sanchez is at the White House for us tonight. Boris, defenders are going to say the president is simply hitting back, but this isn't the first time the president has had a controversy with a military member.
That's right, Anna. The president consistently fighting back on any criticism, whether coming from a member of the military or even military families. It's something that his supporters enjoy thoroughly, that the president fights back whenever he feels he's been attacked, though it's led to a number of awkward moments with military members and their families. Here's this list. You'll recall back in 2016, the president drew criticism, or I should say 2015, he drew criticism when he said that Senator John McCain wasn't a war hero because he was trapped by the Vietnamese. Then you'll recall that in 2016, during the presidential campaign, he attacked the Khan family, that Gold Star family, which spoke out at the Democratic National Convention. He also had a spat with a Gold Star family as president, the family of Sergeant LaDavid Johnson, who disputed some of what President Trump said that he talked about with Johnson's widow in a phone call. We should also point out President Trump has never actually visited troops in war zones, something that he was criticized for this week. He's promised he will do that, but it is notable that the president hasn't done so yet. It's considered one of the basic requirements for being commander-in-chief. And this week, the president also drew criticism because he didn't visit Arlington National Cemetery on Veterans Day. The president told Fox News that is something he regrets. Listen to this.
I should have done that. I was extremely busy on calls for the country. We did a lot of calling, as you know.
But this is Veterans Day.
I probably, in retrospect, I should have, and I did last year, and I will virtually every year. But we had come in very late at night, and I had just left literally the American Cemetery in Paris, and I really probably assumed that was fine. And I was extremely busy because of affairs of state, doing other things.
Now, Anna, defenders of the president will say that few presidents have done more to supply arms and to support members of the armed services, whether they are in war zones or on their way back. Anna?
All right, Boris Sanchez at the White House. Thanks. I want to open up this discussion, and with us, CNN political analyst David Drucker. He's also senior political correspondent for the Washington Examiner. CNN military and diplomatic analyst, retired Rear Admiral John Kirby, and CNN military analyst, retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton. Admiral, I'll start with you because you were at the Pentagon when bin Laden was captured. What do you make of the president's remark?
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that. I mean, look, there was a lot of planning and effort that went into getting bin Laden, and of course that mission was anything but easy. It was very, very risky, and we actually lost a helicopter in the midst of it. I mean, it was very dangerous, but it's not like we ever took our eyes off of bin Laden or weren't trying to get him since 9/11. I mean, he was just very evasive and was able to elude capture or killing. But there was a lot of effort that went into that, so I was a little bit alarmed by that. It doesn't comport with my sense of the history of how hard it was and how long the effort was to get bin Laden.
Colonel, in the aftermath of 9/11, I know you collected intel on bin Laden. When the president says he should have been caught sooner, do you take that personally?
In a way, I do, because one of the big things, Anna, that happened was that the main source that we had about bin Laden's whereabouts was compromised, and it was compromised in several outlets, to include the president's favorite news network, Fox News. So you have a situation where the information that we were dealing with was very perishable. The types of things that we did required bin Laden to be in certain places in order for us to go after him. We could have potentially gotten him as early as 2001, but because the intelligence that we had was so perishable, we lost him, and it took until 2011 before we actually got him.
David, does the president understand that when he makes comments, even if he's punching back to somebody like McRaven, who's been critical of him, that he may be offending these other people who aren't McRaven, who have served this country in the armed forces?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's never quite clear what's going on in the president's head, but I think what we know from watching him as a candidate and as president is that he doesn't seem to appreciate or be too concerned about the weight of his remarks because he is president of the United States. And so normal people might say, you know, something about somebody they don't like or something the government did that they weren't happy with. But the president of the United States, because of who he is, it means that people around the world are watching what he says, and they may use it to their own advantage, try to use it to their own advantage. And when they see the president criticizing the military or criticizing the press, it's not so much that the rest of us can't take it. I mean, look, military veterans are tough people. That's why they're able to do what they do. But I think there's a question of whether or not the president appreciates the weight that his remarks carry. And I don't think he's all that concerned. I think what we've learned is that when the president feels attacked, he doesn't care if it's a Gold Star family who lost a son or daughter fighting in a war. He doesn't care if it's a commander who served for decades in harm's way. All the president cares about is that he was attacked. The interesting thing I would just say as an observer on the McRaven issue and the criticism is that, look, as president, and as all presidents before him, he can be critical with his predecessors. Maybe he doesn't believe they moved against bin Laden soon enough. Maybe he doesn't believe that they prioritized him enough. Maybe they don't believe that the intelligence community did a good enough job in locating him sooner. And that's all fair game for politicians. I mean, that's why the American people often elect new politicians, because they're not happy with the decisions the last ones made. Bill McRaven and the SEALs, when they were given a mission, they executed it. They weren't politicians. They weren't policymakers. They were executors. They did their job. So it was interesting the way he went after McRaven for not, getting bin Laden sooner, as opposed to going after Obama or George W. Bush for not getting bin Laden sooner, which I think may have been fair game to do had he done that.
But McRaven has been political. He's been very critical of this president publicly. Here's part of the searing op-ed he wrote in August. He writes, "Through your actions about the president, you have embarrassed us in the eyes of our children, humiliated us on the world stage, and worst of all, divided us as a nation. If you think for a moment that your McCarthy-era tactics will suppress the voices of criticism, you are mistaken." Colonel, has McRaven crossed any lines here?
Well, remember, he is a retired military officer now, and as such, he has the freedom to express himself just like anybody else does. So I don't think he did, and the reason I think he's okay is that the way in which he expressed himself had to do with his experience. It had to do with what he has seen. And we also shouldn't forget that McRaven was a journalism major when he was an undergraduate at the University of Texas. So he knew not only what he did, but he also understands what journalism is all about, and that's a very unique perspective.
Admiral, we also heard President Trump express that he should have gone to Arlington National Cemetery to mark Veterans Day this past Monday. This is a president who really doesn't apologize, who rarely admits that he was wrong, now expressing regret. Were you surprised to hear him be reflective there?
I was actually heartened by it. I was glad to see that he recognized that it was a mistake, and I don't suspect it's a mistake he'll make again. And look, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, honoring the troops in that way is one of the hardest things for a president to screw up, because it's it's just an expression of thanks and gratitude. So I'm glad to see that he's taken mind of his mistake, and that he'll rectify it going forward. But I'll be honest with you, Anna, I'm conflicted about this, because every time he seems to be around the troops or around military events, he tends to politicize it and inject partisan politics into it. So there was a little part of me that, while I was certainly disappointed he didn't go, and I believe that he should have, and I'm glad he does now too, there was a little part of me that actually was kind of glad, because every time he gets around the troops, he tends to treat us like we are a voting bloc, like we are an extension of the Republican Party, and the military institution has to stay apolitical. And I just wish that when he did do things with us or around us, he would keep the politics out of it.